did the U.S. cover up Shireen Abu Akleh killing? If you don't know about this very sad story, a journalist was killed by the Israeli army, by the IOF. The bullet was found in, I think, in some independent UN kind of investigation that it came from that direction. So in this independent investigation and from other, eyewitness, all of this kind of thing, I think maybe even video evidence, it was determined to be the case. And I believe they never, they had tracked the person that was responsible, but they had never brought them to justice at all. And this story is very sad and intriguing, right? That the U.S., specifically the Biden admin, had helped to kind of work with the Israeli army, with the Israeli government, to cover up this killing, this targeted murder of journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. So a whistleblower says the report was watered down for Israel. Let's tune in and see what's going on here.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. U.S. officials who closely examined the May 11th, 2022 shooting death of an American journalist, Palestinian-American Shireen Abu Akleh, in the occupied West Bank, were deeply divided over the Biden administration's public conclusions, with some officials convinced that her killing was intentional. That's according to the New York Times, citing 5 current and former U.S. officials who worked on the case, including a career military policeman with 30 years' experience. Speaking publicly for the first time, Colonel Steve Gabovitz said the U.S. government had soft-pedaled his office's findings to appease the Israeli government. He said he and his colleagues were left flabbergasted by the Biden State Department.
Wait, I'm not familiar with this lingo. Soft pedaled? Play with the soft pedal down. Oh, okay, like piano soft pedal. To refrain from emphasizing the more unpleasant aspects. To play down like sugarcoat. Yeah, make light of, sugarcoat kind of thing. Okay. So they had
said he had soft-pedaled his office's findings to appease the Israeli government. He said he and his colleagues were left flabbergasted by the Biden State Department's statement, attributing Shireen's killing to, quote, tragic circumstances. Colonel Gabovitz was a key source in the Zateo documentary, Who Killed Shireen? This is Diane Nissenbaum interviewing him when he was still anonymous.
Would you say that the Biden administration failed Shireen Abu Akleh?
I would say so. The U.S. should have absolutely come forward and actually pressed the fact that an American citizen was killed intentionally by IDF.
Intentionally. That is their modus operandi, MO. That is the way the Israeli army does it. Intentionally killing journalists. An American citizen journalist. Not that it matters what their citizenship is, but the fact that the U.S. government did nothing is shameful and telling exactly of where their loyalties and priorities lie.
More, we are joined by retired Colonel Gabovitz in Washington, D.C. We welcome you to Democracy Now!, Colonel Steve Gabovitz. You are speaking out after Zateo for the first time in this global radio television broadcast. If you can talk about what your involvement was exactly in the investigation of the killing of this American journalist, leading Palestinian-American journalist on Al Jazeera, known around the world. Tell us how you came to be involved with the case and how you investigated.
Absolutely. Good morning. So I was the chief of staff for the Office of the United States Security Coordinator for Israel and the Palestinian Authority. So we had interactions on a regular basis with the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian Authority security forces, and then also the government of Israel and the IDF. When Shireen Abu Akleh was killed on May 11, 2022, immediately became a large concern for the United States to try to figure out what had happened for this. On that same day, we started looking, okay, what can we possibly do for an investigation into her killing? because there were reports initially that it was by a Palestinian gunman. There was no reports initially that it was by an IDF, at least not from the Israeli side. And the ambassador at the time asked our office, just because of the relationships we had, to talk to the FBI and see if they'd be possibly that they could do an interview, do an investigation into her killing. At that point in time, we waited for the FBI to get back like a day or two, and they came back and said that we cannot do so. The government of Israel has not asked us to, and does not appear to be an act of terrorism. As such, they did not have jurisdiction. After this determination was made, Lieutenant General Fenzel talked with Ambassador Nides and indicated that we had law enforcement capacity, trained individuals within the USSC, myself being at that point in time 27 years as a military police officer, as well as other members from different nations that were part of the USSC. So since there was no one else to do that investigation inquiry, I was tasked to lead that on behalf of the embassy to look into the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh. Once that was initially determined, we started looking at all the different evidence that existed from every type of communications that were there, video, sound recordings. Immediately went out and met with the Attorney General for the Palestinian Authority. We had one of our other officers go and meet with the IDF, the Central Command G3, to get a rundown of what had happened that day and how their forces were aligned. And we started to see the different things happening in the media at the same point in time. So we continued to build up our capacity and understanding of the event before we went out actually to the site and put ourselves in position to see what actually happened on the ground, knowing what the disposition was of the Israeli forces and knowing exactly the timing and location of Shireen Abu Akleh and the rest of the journalist crew that was out there that morning.
So just to set that scene, May 11th, 2022, she's outside with a team of journalists, the Jenin refugee camp, clearly wearing that press vest and a helmet. So the vest goes up near to her neck. You've got the helmet, so you have to really aim to get her in the neck. So explain what your conclusion was, who you were allowed to speak to, who you were prevented from speaking to, and what was the Israeli military unit in charge there on the ground at the time?
Yeah, absolutely. So after we reviewed all the video evidence, we looked at the autopsy as well and where the bullet had struck her. When we went out to the ground, we wanted to see exactly what type of aiming that the sniper had in relation to his targets and verify whether or not he would have had the ability to see Shireen Abu Akleh and the rest of the media crew walking down the middle of the street. So when we went out there, the day was basically the same thing as exactly it was on May 11th. Beautiful sunny day, clear as could be, no obstructions from where the IDF sat at 190 meters away down to where Shireen Abu Akleh was at and where she was actually shot. And a clear view also down to the road where they had actually staged to start their movement up there to do recordings of what was going on with the IDF interactions that day. We looked at not only the video first to see the different shots that were fired and how they were fired. Al Samudi was shot first, and then there was a break in between, and then it was Shireen Abu Akleh who was shot. And we went to the location of the carob tree. We looked at the bullet holes themselves. There were 3 actually in the carob tree. One obviously hit her as well. And we saw where other ones had hit between the video. All the shots that were at the carob tree and where she was hit in the head were aim shots in a very tight group, which means that they were aimed for headshots at that location. You could see it very easily. From there, we walked up the street to the location where the IDF was set. When they were there on May 11th, they actually had armored vehicles, 5 armored vehicles, 2 that were perpendicular to the road. So they had protective fire to the north and south, and then 3 that were MO. They were the extraction team for the element that had conducted the raid in Jenin itself. From there, we had representatives from the Palestinian Authority security forces in blue vests, and then have a helmet with as well, so we could see them at the same exact locations that the Shireen Abu Akleh was at. And from 190 meters away, we could clearly see just with our plain eyes that this was a blue vest and a blue helmet. From there, we looked and did straight line trajectory, utilizing some capabilities to see exactly how the angles of the shots would have gone from where they were at, and then also with an optic to see how clearly we'd be able to see that the individual was wearing a blue vest that would have said media and a blue helmet. So after we conducted that analysis, we were able to disprove very quickly the assertion that there was a Palestinian gunman in front of Shireen Abu Akleh that the IDF had shot at, and they had accidentally shot her instead, for multiple reasons. One, the actual shots, if they were shooting at a Palestinian gunman where they said they were at, based upon the elevation change and the distance, the bullets would have hit about 75 to 100 meters in front of Shireen Abu Akleh. So there's no way that could have happened. And then when we look at the angle trajectory of where they were shot from, the vehicle that the sniper would have been in with a scope and with the basically a fixed position as the barrel actually goes out through the door and you can turn it around and move it, so it's a stable firing position. The shots were directly angled at where they hit the tree and at Shireen Abu Akleh from that location. With the unit itself, it was the Dudavon unit, which is a special operations counter-terror unit, highly trained and highly skilled. So we knew also definitively that the person who would have been conducting the security on both sides were trained and operational in that unit, and also that the unit has excellent optics that they utilize on their weapons. At a minimum, it would be an ACOG, could have been any other type of scope as well. We do not know. The Israelis never gave us that information. So after we gathered all this up, the indications of everything we read, from the reports that we got from the IDF on their locations and proximity to where the event happened, what we got from the investigation from the Palestinian Authority and our investigation, to us it was very clear that the individual in the vehicle who took the shots, and it was one individual, would have had a clear line of sight and would have had visibility of Shireen Abu Akleh walking down the middle of the street for a period of time before he took the shots. Even one of the examples they said from the IDF, it was a rapid thing. They were responding to other fires. They didn't see the target on, they did not see Shireen Abu Akleh as a potential media person because it was so rapid. That's, is dispelled also by the fact that there was the break after he already taken aim and hit El Samoudi, and then subsequently took aim shots then. So no matter what, they would have had the scope and optic down the road by the time Shireen Abu Akleh was shot. And they were in clear view in the middle of the road.
Did the Israeli military, did the Israeli government allow you to question the Israeli military?
No, they did not. The only thing that we got was them giving us the initial report of their operations that day, which basically just laid out what they were doing in their timeline and where the forces were at. This was also at the same point in time that they were saying that it wasn't us, it was a Palestinian gunman, and if it was us by any chance, it was an absolute accident. Never would have known that she was actually there, and we did not try to shoot her. Now, I believe they didn't know that it was Shireen Abu Akleh. I think they knew she was in the area, but they would have known as a journalist for sure. Tied to that also just very quickly, so one of the pieces that sort of drove the U.S. perspective on this was that Major General Fuchs, who was the Central Command commander on the very same day Shireen Abu Akleh was shot, May 11th, he met with Lieutenant General Fenzel and basically sketched out, where his forces were and said that it was most likely a Palestinian who had shot her, but there was a possibility that it could have been an accidental shooting based upon the fog of war from the IDF. And that's pretty much the stance that the USG sort of stayed with in spite of all the evidence that transpired after that first day.
Evil people.
So then if you can talk about what was said at the time, at the conclusion of the report. I want to go to the Zateo documentary, Who Killed Shireen, in which Diane Nissenbaum speaks with the former State Department official Andrew Miller, who was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Israeli-Palestinian Affairs when Shireen was killed in 2022.
It's nearly 100% certain that an Israeli soldier, likely a sniper, fired the shot that killed, or the shots that killed Shireen Abu Akleh. Based on all the information we have, it is not credible to suggest that there were targets either in front of or behind Shireen Abu Akleh. The fact that the official Israeli position remains that this was a case of crossfire. The entire episode was a mistake, as opposed to potentially a mistaken identification or the deliberate targeting of this individual points to, I think, a broader policy of seeking to manage the narrative.
And did these Israelis ever make the soldier available to the U.S. to talk about it?
No, and the Israelis were not willing to present that person for even informal questioning.
So that is the former State Department official, Andrew Miller. He was Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Israeli-Palestinian Affairs when Shireen was killed back in May 2022. Not to be confused with Matthew Miller. And we want to play a clip from him from last year under President Biden. A reporter is questioning the State Department spokesperson, Matthew Miller.
I'm asking, why USA didn't take Aisha Nouri case and Shireen Abu Akleh case seriously and suspended military aid to Israel?
We have taken those cases.
And they are American.
We have taken those cases extremely seriously. If you heard me yesterday when I talked at this podium, I talked at length about our interactions with the government.
This is the same vampire that, as soon as he was out of this position of, press secretary or State Department spokesperson, he goes on the podcast being like, oh, guys, it's bad, it's evil, oh, it is a genocide. Fuck you to hell and back. You were working with them for the genocide. Fuck you.
Of Israel about most recently,
and now he's covering up. We got the same guy, Matthew Miller, covering up that the Israeli army intentionally murdered Shireen Abu Akleh, a U.S. journalist working with a press vest, not even in some kind of high-intensity situation. They, in a calm moment, when no fire was being taken, when there were no terrorists, there was no enemy confrontation happening at all. In a calm moment, after, as we just heard, after this gunman in the Israeli army killed someone else, they aimed and intentionally aimed for her head and killed her. And this guy is covering it up. And he has does he have no shame to immediately turn around and try to make a buck off of it? Try to get on the right side of history, play politics again? Fuck you. Fuck you. To hell and back. I feel angry seeing this guy's face because of all of the smirks and grins that I remember from all of the press conferences. There are no words to express my disgust for this individual.
The Aisha Eggy case, where we have made clear to them that her death was unacceptable, that it should have been avoided, it should have never happened in the first place, that we want to see the results of their investigation, and we want to see them change their rules of engagement.
So that was Matthew Miller. If you can explain your response, I think the term was flabbergasted. A number of the people engaged in this investigation, like you were, retired colonel, explain what exactly the responses of the State Department, their conclusions that this was tragic circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll actually back it up a little bit because it ties very well into the comments from Andrew Miller as well. So after we had completed this, we were on regular video calls, classified and unclassified, with the State Department. I spoke with Andrew Miller several times about our findings. I spoke to Ambassador Nides about my findings as well, and I indicated to both of them in different times that the evidence to me indicated that there would have been enough, if we actually built a criminal case, to have enough information and facts to be beyond a reasonable doubt for a conviction at some level, would be manslaughter or something of that nature. So that was briefed to both the ambassador, to General Fenzel, and then also to the State Department during these different engagements. So that's one reason why I've worked very closely with Andrew Miller since that point in time as well. So we were anticipating and we were pushing for the fact that they needed to formally admit the fact that it was not an accident, that a soldier killed Shireen Abu Akleh, that it was an intentional shooting, and unfortunately, that was not what came out on July 4th. I had been going back and forth predominantly with Lieutenant General Fenzel and saying we need to make this and hold them accountable for their actions. We need the Biden administration to absolutely press Israel to follow through on this and give us answers for the killing of an American citizen where all evidence indicates that it was an intentional thing. And we saw, the false narratives that Israel was trying to press continuously, all the way until September of actually 2022, when they finally admitted that it was the IDF that likely killed her, but still as an accident. So when the actual statement came out on July 4th, that was absolutely not what I expected. I know General Fenzel had been involved in writing that statement. I was not involved in the final component of the statement that was written for the State Department to release on July 4th, so I was shocked. Sitting there with several other members of our team, with the public diplomacy team at the Office of Palestinian Affairs as well, and we couldn't understand what actually happened. We're like, how can we even possibly say this? Number one, there's still data out there. All the data indicates the exact opposite. It was not fog of war. There was no way there was any, Palestinian gunmen in the way or anything else that would go to the Israeli narrative. So when that came out, it's like took the sails out of us because this was not what we had found. And this continued to be a point of contention for me for the next 2 years.
Could you imagine, like, you're working for the U.S. government, whatever the fuck this guy, I don't know, military police kind of thing. Like, you're going and doing your due diligence, writing this fucking report. They went on the ground. They investigated the actual tree. They did the fucking, like, ballistics, forensics, whatever the fuck it's called. Just for some general to play geopolitics, like Netanyahu has called in the favor or whatever, and they got on the phone and it came down from, above your top brass, whatever the fuck it's called, to just brush whatever that investigation was under the rug. Like, it didn't even fucking matter. And I guess they didn't have the bureaucratic organization to go all the way down the chain of command and be like, hey, don't even do a good job of the investigation. They can't even do the corruption, the collusion properly. They can't even collude properly because they have someone in the military police doing the investigation and being like, well, wait a second, guys, like, someone intentionally killed her. The Israeli soldier intentionally, in a calm moment, in a fortified position with 2 armored vehicles, whatever this retired colonel said, took a shot, took multiple shots in a tight group at her head, killing her from this position in a calm moment where there were no enemy, quote unquote, combatants. Nothing was happening. He had just killed someone else and he intentionally fired on this journalist. And that's what this guy found. And they're just ignoring it. Like, what's the point? They can't even collude properly. They can't even collude properly to tell this guy to keep it hush hush. They just cut it off at the head. It goes through the system, and then at the top they decide it doesn't matter.
Written with the findings for the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh.
Would you call this a cover-up by the Biden administration?
Definitely a lack of action. Cover-up, maybe to a degree, yes, because many people knew within there and had the ability to reach out and find all the rest of the information from us and chose not to after that narrative was said. So the fact that initially Biden came out and said when it was a Palestinian gunman, what was thought to be a Palestinian gunman, that we will find who this was, we will make sure there's justice for the killing of Shireen Abu Akleh.
Yeah, when they were saying it was a Palestinian that did it, right? Biden's, after saying that, right, next sentence, we think it was a Palestinian and we will find the individual responsible and hold them accountable. But the second it shifted to, oh, actually it was the Israeli soldier, it just disappears. The whole story just disappears. Gone with the next news cycle. Just like the Epstein files thing, with the FBI, talking about everything else besides Jeffrey Epstein, Trump, Prince Andrew, Clinton, all of these people, rich people, Bill Gates. I mean, we don't even have the full list. I'm just naming the ones I can remember. They take us for fools. They play in our face. Evil, evil people.
But then after that statement came out on July 4th, we never heard anything again from the administration whatsoever to hold Israel accountable for anything. And once there was no Palestinian gunman, they weren't after looking to find an answer for who actually killed her. So in that sense, it was an inaction, cover up to some degree, and it all came down to, in my mind, not trying to anger the Israelis by holding them accountable for intentionally killing an American citizen.
You would later retire from the State Department. You went unidentified in the Who Killed Shireen Zateo documentary. Why have you decided to come out fully now, identifying yourself and speaking out?
So while I was still in the military prior to January, I couldn't really speak out about this. Not tied to being secret or anything of that nature, but just within the context of being within the military, I would have to listen to the directives of the public affairs and everything else on what they would allow me to talk about or not talk about. So after I retired, this had, like I said, remained on my conscience continuously. And a friend of mine introduced me to Dion, and we talked, and we agreed that I would participate in the documentary. I had been, concerned to a degree about coming forward because potential ramifications, both personally, from threats and everything else that could possibly come from it. But after the documentary came out, I was looking to come forward in about the May-June time frame. And that's when I decided I need to keep this going. I need to talk about it, because what we need to have happen is there needs to be action taken. We cannot let our American citizens be killed anywhere around the country, around the world, without someone taking action and actually look into it and hold people accountable for it. So I figured that the best way for me to do this and try to prevent that from happening again to journalists, to other American citizens, whatever it may be, is we have to keep this on the, on the news cycle, in the discussions with congressional leaders, in discussions, with the White House for what has to be done. And
I think this is a different kind of come to Jesus moment than Stephen Miller, or what's his name, Matthew Miller, the spokesperson for the State Department, going out and kind of trying to fight the good fight or whatever, right? Like, this is someone that did the work, and they were already, not to be a purist or whatever, but they were already on the right side, if you will. They were already doing this investigation, and now they're speaking out as a whistleblower, right? They were, formerly affiliated with the government, with the military police, I believe it was, retired colonel. And now they're, face out saying, I used to work in the system. This is how it was. They didn't listen to me. I did the report. And it was an Israeli soldier that killed this U.S. Citizen journalist intentionally. They murdered her. Targeted and murdered her. And I think that's totally different from the flip-flopping, right? Like the standard, like I said, playing politics, playing the people, and switching from, oh no, guys, it was an accident, all of this is normal collateral damage, and Israel is a moral army, they're targeting only terrorists. Pay no attention to the entirely razed city that has been turned into piles of rubble, burying people alive, that are being starved at the same time, that are dying from preventable disease, sickness, chronic disease, things like diabetes, dialysis. The same guy goes and flips and says, wait, guys, I had a revelation. It's a genocide. Fuck you. You know, I'll see it when I believe it. Sure, if you want to be on the good side, sure, but you can do that away from me. I'm not going to be in community with you. You're going to need to show a lot to prove yourself before I can trust you, and that's just me. Everyone, you know, operates a little bit differently. I'm not quick to trust someone that just flip-flopped on the other side. That, to me, is a huge red flag, and I don't know. I just call it how I see it. I think that's someone playing politics. I think that's someone trying to cling to relevancy versus coming from the right place, the good faith place of doing the right thing. Right? This makes me think of people that will go and donate to a charity after they've done something incredibly wrong, right? Like you, just for example, have been hunting endangered animals, and then you go and donate to the, you know, World Wildlife Federation, things like this. Or you were flying around on a private jet and you say, oh, I bought a forest, or I donated a bunch of trees. Like, you're just being reactive. You're being reactionary and doing what you think people want. You're not actually thinking about stuff. The only thing you're thinking about is, how do I cling to relevancy? How do I make sure my follower count doesn't go down and my likes keep going up? Like, that's the vampire mindset, right? I can see right through it. That's not in good faith. That's not in good faith. And I think this is. I think this is thankless hard work, right? Imagine all of the bullshit that this person has to go through. And I don't know why, you know, I could understand someone doing their own risk assessment, but I'm just glad they're finally really talking about this. It's been years. It's been years. And, you know, it's never too late for people to get justice and for the truth to come out.
When I also saw what the current administration is doing in holding people accountable globally, which I very much appreciated compared to what the Biden administration did, I thought there's a hope also that we might be able to have additional pressure and efforts to hold Israel accountable for what they've done. Not only just with, you know, Shireen Abu Akleh, we also had another American killed literally that same year in January in the hands of the IDF. And then, of course, we had an American citizen who was killed by settlers with IDF presence in July. So we have to make sure that this stuff is being dealt with seriously. That's why I wanted to come out and be a voice for the protection of Americans.
Retired Colonel Steve Gabovich, I want to thank you for being with us when the U.S. officials closely examining the May 11, 2022 Israeli military shooting death of Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh. He concluded her killing was intentional. This is Democracy Now!